Hey YouTube, Joe Boy here. So, chapter 850 of One Piece has dropped, and it's a great chapter. If you haven't checked it out yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. Guys, this is the very last chapter of 2016, and my god, 2016 ended with a bang. It couldn't be any more fitting. People are calling this the biggest plot twist in the history of One Piece, and while I'll probably disagree with that comment, this is very near the very top. But you guys know what I'm talking about, right? We're talking about Pudding, and my god, she went from 0 to 100 real quick. Last chapter was the definitive chapter which persuaded many people to jump off of the bandwagon that Pudding was not 100% genuine. That was just last chapter, and this chapter, well, those people who thought that are looking pretty foolish. I may or may not have been one of those people for a brief moment. But guys, I think we need to give respect to the theory community. The theory community is trashed by a lot of people who think that we're just a bunch of crackpots. However, in this case, all of our intense looking at details actually paid off. The clues were there, and by God, we predicted it. It started off way back pretty much as soon as we met Pudding, where people started to wonder whose side she was exactly on, with some very strange comments about Sanji, about having black legs, describing him like he was from his bounty poster. And so a lot of people read that and thought to themselves, okay, maybe Pudding is lying. And while I still do not believe that is actual evidence to suggest that Pudding was bad, that was the start. And then from that point in time, Pudding led the Straw Hats to the southwestern coast, and guess who was in the southwestern coast ready for the Straw Hats? Big Mom. And we know that Big Mom, or at least Brûlé, knew that the Straw Hats had met Pudding because Brûlé created a mirrored image of Pudding, suggesting that she knew that the Straw Hats expected to find Pudding there. And taking in this detail, the best explanation was that Pudding set them up. And then we have some very strange observations with Pudding and Clocks, which still isn't 100% addressed in the story, but I still do believe it, which is that we see Pudding and Clocks all over her home. We also saw Clocks in the Seducing Woods, and I still wonder if that has something to do with Pudding's still yet to be revealed powers. Oh yeah, and there was that obvious missing detail, which is that Pudding looked exactly like the three-eyed girl, yet she was hiding that third eye. Why was she doing that? Well, all of it added up to a correct theory, and I couldn't be any more happy about that. But we can't revel in victories for too long. It's time to move on and find new questions and potentially new theories that may lead us to future truths that are yet to be revealed. But I do want to get back to Pudding a little bit later, because while from this chapter alone everything seems to fall into place and that we know everything that we need to know really about Pudding now from this chapter, I do believe that there are several scenarios which need to be discussed about Pudding's future role still. And so let's get into the other huge reveal of this chapter, which is essentially Pudding told Revujo that Big Mom had planned all along to betray the Vinsmoke, kill them all, and then take their tech and their clones. This was something that I did not see coming. But I did read comments from people who did see it coming, so to those people, congratulations. Now, thinking along these lines, several things really changed. Before, I was under the impression that in some way there would be a conflict incited between the Vinsmoke and the Big Mom Pirates. Now this seems like an inevitability, but the circumstances are changed. Before, I thought maybe Capone would have a role in this, but it seems like Capone isn't necessary. This was going to happen regardless of what Capone did. So the question for me now is, what exactly is Capone's plan? What exactly does he hope to achieve? The one thing that I want to draw your guys' attention to, which could potentially have a role in this, is that Vito, basically Capone's second in command, seems to be in love with the Vinsmoke. This was like his childhood heroes. And if this extends in any way to Capone himself, perhaps Capone knows of Big Mom's plans and is actually trying to save the Vinsmoke. Or, on the flip side, if he learns that Big Mom plans on taking out the Vinsmoke, perhaps this will affect his decision making. Perhaps he'll actually come to the defense of the Vinsmoke. This seems like a bit of a stretch, but it is something interesting to think about. But from all this, the biggest thing which is really baffling me is that the Vinsmoke are now the people in need. They need saving. And so throughout the course of One Piece, Luffy always comes to the aid of those who need aid. The Big Mom Pirates right now are initiating the conflict. They do not need any help. The Vinsmoke, on the other hand, do, which could potentially set the Vinsmoke up as being some sort of ally with the Straw Hats. But I still am in no way going to believe this because of the Vinsmoke's pretty atrocious past with Sanji himself. Regardless of whether or not they need help, right now they are not an entity that deserves help. Keep in mind that their dream is to take over the North Blue and essentially subjugate people of that area. This is not something that Luffy should defend. So if the Big Mom Pirates are initiating the conflict and essentially reveling in bloodlust, and the Vinsmoke are not an entity that deserves saving, and they are going to fight, what exactly will be the Straw Hats' role in all of this? It could potentially set up a huge fight between the Vinsmokes and the Big Mom Pirates, which could allow the Straw Hats to in some way escape from Whole Cake Island and basically allow them to duke it out, and they're just gonna deuce. But this just does not seem in Luffy's nature to leave a fight unfinished. Especially not after being betrayed by Pudding like this. There is no way in my mind Luffy is just going to let Pudding get away with doing what she just did. We could essentially see a free-for-all. The Big Mom Pirates versus the Vinsmoke versus the Straw Hat Pirates versus the Capone Pirates. All of these guys going at it all at the same time. Switching gears a little bit, the Luffy and Nami situation seems pretty dire. Luffy's literally willing to sacrifice his hands in order to escape just so that he actually has the ability to do something rather than do nothing. I want you guys to take a moment to appreciate just how fucked they are, because they are 100% fucked. My best guess as to right now as to how they would escape would be Chopper. Chopper's looking to enter the castle. He's failing right now, but at some point he probably will succeed, and maybe he can in some way help Luffy and Nami out of that situation. But in order to do that right now, he would have to defeat the cream guy. I already forgot his name. Opera. And so that doesn't seem really feasible for Chopper and Carrot to do, but potentially Opera isn't as strong as he seems to be, but I think he is as strong as he seems to be. So maybe he'll get distracted in some way. I'm not sure. And then where the hell is Jinbei? Jinbei literally just left. Gone. We haven't seen a trace of him. What is he doing? I'm sure whatever he's doing is going to be important, but I'm about ready for him to show back up. And if the big reveals from this chapter wasn't enough, those who are on the Pedro for Nakama train, they just got a whole bunch of evidence from this chapter. Pedro is a believer. The first step in potentially having him join the crew after the end of this arc. The last thing that I would need to fully believe in this is some sort of indication of some sort of ultimate goal Pedro has, and I do not believe that just waiting for the dawn and believing in the Straw Hats is enough of a goal at this point in time. He would need something similar to like the dreams of the current Straw Hats, and potentially Jinbei as well, with his dream of sort of ending the racism between the fishmen and the humans. Pedro needs something similar to that. And potentially also an invitation. All the male members of the Straw Hat crew got a specific invitation to join the crew from Luffy. Now this isn't 100% required because Robin did invite herself onto the crew. So perhaps Pedro could do the same thing and just basically say, I believe in you guys, can I join your crew? And maybe Luffy will say yes. Anyway guys, we also learned specifically that Peckham's did sell out his comrades. The exact circumstances are kind of fishy, honestly. It's very interesting. Essentially from this chapter, I think we can take that Peckham's was secretly a member of the Big Mom Pirates all along, basically ratted them out, but like asked for some sort of mercy. He spun the roulette for them, which totaled to 100 years, ended up killing one of his comrades, Zeppo. And basically they bartered some of Pedro's life away as well, or begged for some of it to be spared. And so he didn't get the 70 years, which probably would have killed him. Instead, he got 50 years and lost his eye. But still, that's a pretty low move from Peckham's. I had a lot more respect for him before this chapter. It honestly baffles me that Peckham was able to look at Pedro in the eye when they met again in Zoe, which was presumably the first time that they had met since this instance. Like, honestly, if I was Pedro, I would have pretty much struck Peckham's down at that point in time. And also, guys, random thought, I'm not exactly sure all the importance that this could have, but I get the feeling Zeppo was actually Beppo's father. I don't know if you guys get that impression or not. They both seem to be polar bears. Then you have the name Beppo and then Zeppo. It all sort of kind of fits. And then Beppo's seeming like lack of parents would make a lot of sense. And so, guys, I saved this for last because what the fuck? It looked like Pedro literally cut Tamago in half. Like, legit. And when he did, he sort of broke legit like an egg and had like yolk coming out of him. Is Tamago dead? For real? I don't know, man. If he is based on Humpty Dumpty, perhaps he will put himself back together. I'm just saying, maybe it's a possibility. And so, guys, to end this video, I want to bring up one very important question. I will actually be making a video specific for this idea, but essentially the idea will be in some way to redeem Pudding. Although she may seem 100% evil to whoever read this chapter, and I do believe that she sold out the Straw Hats, there are some things that don't make sense. And so, first things first is that Big Mom had planned on annihilating the Vinsmoke at the wedding. So Pudding acting on her own and taking Revujo before the actual wedding does not make any sense to me. Like, Big Mom had no need to snipe off the Vinsmoke one by one if she could just surprise them all, annihilate them all at the wedding, which is what Pudding said that her plan was. And so, by taking Revujo beforehand, it allows for the opportunity for the Vinsmoke to become suspicious, raise their guard, and potentially prepare defenses against the oncoming Red Wedding. So if I'm 100% honest, this move is frankly dumb. If Pudding decided to do this on her own, this is dumb. If Big Mom gave her an order to take out Revujo beforehand, this is equally dumb, unless Revujo had planned on doing something against the Big Mom pirates, and they somehow caught her. That would be the only way that any of this would make any sense. But then Revujo herself said that she wouldn't help Sanji anymore, explicitly. So either she was lying in some way or had a change of heart, or this situation may not be as it seems. And then again, I think it's very curious as to the person who took out Revujo. It happened to be Pudding. Now, this could have, if Revujo was planning something against the Big Mom pirates and they caught her, this literally could have been anybody else besides Pudding. But it was Pudding. And we also learned, as of a couple chapters ago, that it seemed as though Pudding had some sort of like discussion with herself about what she planned on doing. Only last chapter, Pudding essentially learned that the Straw Hats had obtained Lola's Viver card from her nurse, or whoever it was, her servant. And then afterwards she went on the balcony and started thinking to herself, reminiscing about Lola's last moments, essentially saying, "Don't worry about me, Pudding, I'll be fine, Big Mom won't kill me." And this essentially implies that Pudding was going to do something against Big Mom and put herself into danger and test whether or not Big Mom would actually kill one of her daughters or not. Now, given this last chapter, this thought seems pretty ridiculous. I think many people would think. But there are times when lying makes sense, and there's times where it doesn't. Now, Pudding is a good liar. I 100% believe that. But in this case, where she's on the balcony thinking to herself, she's essentially, there's nobody there to lie to. She's being 100% herself, or she should be, because nobody is watching her. So if this is the real Pudding, it sort of suggests some sort of mental dilemma, like she's struggling to come up with some sort of answer. And so this particular thought, combined with the fact that it would be stupid for the Big Mom pirates to take out Revujo before and give the Vinsmokes an opportunity to become suspicious, perhaps suggests that Pudding is actually doing whatever she's doing in order to, in a way, some just completely baffling way, will end up helping the Straw Hat. Now, thinking from this perspective, it's possible that this is all a creation of Pudding. Perhaps Big Mom actually did want to get married with the Vinsmokes, but right now Pudding is setting up the Vinsmokes so that they actually attack the Big Mom pirates, potentially allowing for the Straw Hats to escape. This is an alternative way to look at the situation, and I understand that it won't be popular, but honestly, based on just how odd this whole situation is, especially that flashback with Lola, I honestly really want to believe this. But you guys can expect a more organized and well-prepared video on this topic at some point in time to sort of further the discussion. But anyway, guys, this chapter was just fucking amazing. Great end to 2016, and I mean, there's really not much else to say. It was just flat out amazing. Best chapter of the year? Potentially. But let me know what you guys think about the chapter. Let me know if you noticed anything from the chapter that I didn't. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video. Dislike the video if you dislike the video. Subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.